So, welcome everyone to another edition of Impactful Teamwork. I'm Julia Felton, I'm your host and guide. And today I have another exciting guest with me today, Lucas Kulbis. Have I pronounced that right, Lucas? Yeah?
Yes, Lucas
Okay.
Kulbis.
Okay. And Lucas is a high performance coach and also a breathwork expert. And I wanted to bring him onto the podcast this week because probably a few months ago now, we discussed all about health, and breathwork is a key thing that we can do as business leaders to regulate ourselves. And as a result of regulating ourselves, have an impact on everyone around us. So, welcome to the podcast, Lucas. We're really happy to have you here.
Thank you, Julia. Really excited to share some practical tools about the breathwork today.
Yeah, great. And I so look forward to that because you might not be aware, but some of my leadership work I do with horses. So I'm really familiar with the importance of energy, and breath work always comes under that mantra of what we're doing there. You're a young guy, not the most usual profession to be an expert in breath work. So just tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are, because I always find people's stories fascinating.
Yeah, of course. So I was born and raised in Chicago and went through the traditional academic system, was very set up with a computer science degree in
Okay.
artificial intelligence. So I was
Oh,
very
wow.
primed for everything, but decided to create a startup with my best friend. And so we had this really great startup and I just kept on pushing. I was pouring everything into the business. And I thought that once we launched the product, once we got there, then it would all be worth it. And we did get there. We launched the product successfully, but still it was a couple of moments, it was a couple of days of celebration, but then that emptiness was still there. And I
Mm.
realized that I had been neglecting myself for the business. And essentially that led me to burning out. So from there, went on this journey of self-discovery and was climbing mountains in Colorado. Essentially that journey
Uh,
brought me here to Ecuador, and so I was really searching for something that no matter where life takes me, whatever situation I get into, what do I still have? What is with me? And I realized that at the foundation is my breath. You can
Yeah.
survive 3 months without food, 3 weeks without sleep, 3 days without water, but only 3 minutes without the breath. And this is
Mm.
something that most high performers just overlook is this foundational piece. And so essentially I realized, oh, let me optimize this and then it will improve everything else that I do in my life. So it changed my life. This breathwork changed my life. And so now I'm on a mission to help share these tools with the world at large.
Mm. And I love that because you're so true. It's stating the obvious, isn't it? But if you're not breathing, you're not alive. And we often talk about on the show about how so many business leaders foot to the metal and just go. And it's no big surprise when you die, your heart flatlines, right? You've
Hmm.
not got it anymore. And so yeah, we forget. I'm just even thinking gratitude as I'm saying that. I'm never grateful in the morning for my breath. And that's a big
Hmm.
reminder, isn't it? That perhaps that's something we should be grateful for. So I can so see how you got to where you are today, and amazing living in Ecuador. And maybe we'll explore that in a moment. So tell me then a little bit about how, as a leader, because leaders are really stressed, right? Let's
Hmm.
face it, everyone listening here today has got some degree of stress, whether it's driven directly from their work or the crazy world that we're living in right now. So we're recording this. Everyone's got stress. So how does breath work help you improve your health and your performance?
Yeah, so I typically work with entrepreneurs, but really this affects everyone who breathes. So that's
Yeah.
probably you if you're listening to this. But I like to say that entrepreneurship is an extension of your life. Leadership is an extension of your life. It's not something that you plug in 9 to 5 and then you go away. It's something that you're constantly working on in your mind, and whatever energy you bring, whatever your sleep is, it really affects that. And so it really, the energy that you bring to your work, it really is a reflection of your life. And so what breathwork can do is that it can basically have a pattern interrupt to the run on sentence that is going on in our mind. Usually, what happens is that some plan goes wrong in the morning or something doesn't go as planned. And then we're like, oh, it might be a little thing. But since there's so much to do, since there's so much stress, we just move on. We just fix it, move on, but we don't really process it. And so then that little stress, something else little happens. And this stress keeps on piling up until it's the end of the day and you're just running on cortisol fumes and you're just overwhelmed. It wasn't one big thing, typically wasn't one big thing. It
Yep.
was just all these little things that keep stacking up. So what breathwork can do is that it can help you to just reset, whether it's 60 seconds, whether it's 5 minutes. It's just like a reset from operating from your amygdala, your stress, your fight or flight, survival, tunnel vision, to relaxing, seeing the big picture, thinking with your prefrontal cortex. And it is essentially this one vital system that is connected to your heart rate, your brain waves, and your nervous system. And we
Mm.
can control it. But most people only ever breathe passively. Breathwork is making this a proactive tool so that then you can shift your state on demand. I really like the foundation. What I teach is like state, story, strategy. That first we regulate our state. Because
Mhm.
if the foundation is built on this fight or flight survival mechanism, then that's the story that you're going to tell. You're going to make decisions from a limited place. So first we regulate our state to see the big picture, to know that you are safe, so that your body knows that you're safe. And then from that, you tell yourself an empowering story of what would be the best case scenario. We often go to the worst case scenario, all the problems, but what is the path through? How can we get through this with ease? And then finally is the strategy. What is the aligned action that I can take to execute on this? So to tie it back to the original question, how can leaders use breathwork to regulate yourself, to be an example to others that even with everything else, all the chaos going on, you are solid. We
Mhm.
are good because we are trusting of ourselves to get through this situation.
And I love what you said there because it's so empowering, isn't it? That you know that you can change your state. Because a lot of people, I recently ran a webinar about psychological safety and, how important that is. And so many people nowadays, I sense, don't feel safe. There's just a kind of low level anxiety around, and we know more and more people are anxious, and part of that's probably driven by not feeling safe. So the fact that you've actually got some ability to control this, I think is actually really empowering for people. But like you say, we don't think about your heart's running fast, and we don't think about, oh God, I just need to. Because I know in some of the leadership work I do with horses, and when I bring clients out, often people are quite anxious.
Mm.
You're with a horse, you've never been with a horse before. And actually, that's one of the things I always say to them is just breathe. And I'll never forget one day, a few years ago, a lady was actually riding past my house on a horse. And her horse was very animated. And literally, you could see her holding her breath. And I just go, could you just breathe? The minute she went, you could just see the horse went, "Ugh." So relaxed. And so it's really interesting how our state impacts people around us. In this case, it was the horse. It impacts our team members. We see it, don't we? When leaders are, the team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very fascinating. There's a lot to touch on there, but one is this first, the safety. Yeah, right now I'm safe. There's no immediate threats to me. But the majority of us, especially in America, we are overconsumers. We want more and more, and so we consume. We also overconsume oxygen. We breathe in a way that is shallow, short.
Yeah.
Typically, most Americans breathe 18 breaths per minute. And so then that leads us to only breathing in the top 20% of our lungs, where the majority of our lung is actually down here. So we breathe to the top of our lungs, which then signals to our nervous system, hey, breathe in a way that's like a fight or flight, a sympathetic nervous system activation. And that signals to our brain, oh, you need to get the next thing. You need to be anxious, right? And so it's this constant feedback cycle that reinforces itself. So when people say take a breath, it's yes, but the important part of that is to let the breath go, to completely exhale, because we're not really allowing ourselves to exhale completely so that we can rejuvenate the air that is at the bottom of our lung.
Mhm.
So yeah, when we say take a breath, it's take a breath out, take a moment. And you can even see it in people. Even when you were telling that story, you're like, she was holding your breath and then you told her to take a breath and she, ah, the
Yeah.
shoulders drop, we relax, we start to get grounded and safe in that space. And then the other point there is this co-regulation. They talk about body language, and there are these nonverbal ways of communicating. You walk into a room and you can feel the energy, right? There was just an argument here, or this party is really rocking. We also communicate with babies, with dogs, with horses, not through words, but
Yep.
directly through our nervous system. And that's like an evolutionary thing that we came from when we were babies. We needed to co-regulate with our mothers, with our caretakers. And that's something that at some point you have this autonomy and we have the ability to self-regulate, but this co-regulation is constantly working. So for the leaders, it's just you are communicating so much more than whatever your words are carrying across. Your nervous system, that is a much more primal way to communicate. So I really
Yeah.
respect what you're doing with the horses because I find them just so majestic and pure. And it's just they're very
Yeah.
grounded.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think that that word grounded is so important, isn't it? Because when we take a breath, we naturally get more grounded, we get more present. And of course, when we're more present, like you said, you open up that periphery vision and you
Mhm.
can see everything. And I know I'm really guilty. I'm one of those people that does the top 20. I
Mhm.
have done a breathwork class before and I was like, "Oh, God, but it was hard work. Hey, it's amazing how we've conditioned ourselves. I'll own it. I've conditioned myself just to breathe in this part of my body. And then when I have to do a deep breath, and I'm like, God, that's really difficult. And often I end up doing reverse breathing when people go breathe in and I breathe out. I can't even get it right at the same time. So just tell us a little bit about, can you talk a little bit about the neuroscience about getting more oxygen into the body and stuff and what that's
Yeah.
doing? Yeah.
Yeah, I would be happy to. And I'll just add one more thing about the being grounded in presence. I love this quote that the past is not what happened yesterday. The past is what stayed from what happened yesterday. And so the breath is inherently always in this moment. Where is the breath that we breathed at the start of this call? Where is the breath in 5 minutes? It doesn't really work, right? The breath is the one that's here and now. And ultimately, that's the only place that you make decisions from the present moment. And so I
Yeah.
really love the breath as a tool of people are like, what does it mean to being grounded? It means living from the current position, your current
Yeah.
state. So yeah, a little bit about the neuroscience is that what specifically are you curious about with the
Well,
neuroscience?
just a really very simplistic. What parts of the brain are getting activated by taking a deeper breath? Because you talked about the frontal lobal cortex earlier on. So what's going on in the brain and what chemicals are getting activated by breathing better? Are we getting more oxytocin? I'm guessing we're not getting more adrenaline, but just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I see the breath. I like to think of the breath as your built in remote control. As I
Okay.
mentioned, it's one of the few functions like blinking that's automatic, but also voluntary. But the
Uh-huh.
difference between blinking and breathing is that breathing connects to these core systems. And so sometimes it's direct, sometimes it's indirect. Like in the case of the nervous system, when you breathe in, then your heart gets bigger. And so then the blood flows, which signals to your brain, hey, move faster. So when you're breathing in, you're activating your sympathetic nervous system. And that is the fight or flight response. Typically, when we stay in that zone, then we are very much in the amygdala. It is the fear center of the brain, but it's also hyper aware. It's also very aware of your situation, of your environment. But when we're breathing out, we are down regulating our nervous system. So it's activating the parasympathetic nervous system. You can think of it the fight or flight. And really what that does, it doesn't mean that we're just going to sleep. It means that we feel calm and safe. And so then we're able to access a wider, you can think of seeing the big picture. And so then our prefrontal cortex comes more online. And so we can, and our limbic system is not so limited. Our limbic system is the emotional regulation. So when we're breathing from a calm, collected state, we're able to make clearer decisions as well as connect to people more deeply. So that's just a little bit. Also,
Yeah.
the breathwork science is really fascinating what's coming out now. They have found just like we have a unique fingerprint and
Hmm.
unique iris, we also have a unique breath print. They put these
What?
tubes, yeah, they put some tubes to measure people's breathing patterns for 24 hours. And then after a couple of months, they re-examined it and they were able to detect over 90% of the people just from their breathing pattern. And so it's
Wow.
very interesting how the way that you breathe is also uniquely to you. And the part in your brain that controls how you breathe is also overlapping with the part of your brain, I forget exactly what it's called, that is rooted to your identity.
Hmm.
So there's this whole idea that your breathing, when you change the way you breathe, you change the way you think, you change the way that you live. And so it's really core to our sense of identity and how we approach the world.
Oh, so that's so interesting. So let's just talk then and what can we share with the listeners about it's all frenetic in business. All of a sudden, the nuclear bombs crashed in the business. Everyone's going, "Ah." How can we as leaders help our team to get regulated? Perhaps you could just take us through a really short example of a breath work exercise we could do in the moment just to get everyone on the same page.
Of course, my pleasure. So, first, by example, right? As a leader, everyone is looking to you and they are exchanging information at the nervous system level. So, when things get very stressful, the first breath work that I teach is the physiological sigh. So, what this is, it's taking a full breath into the bottom of your belly. So, using the diaphragm, which is this
Mhm.
muscle that splits your thoracic, your fight or flight organs, your lungs, your heart, from your digestive organs, your rest and digest. So your breath is embodied, and here's a dividing line. So there's the diaphragm. And what we're going to do is we take a full breath in through the nose, pulling the diaphragm down. So you'll feel your stomach going out a little bit. So, and then taking a little sip of air at the top and then extending the exhale. You can do it through your mouth like a sigh. So it'll look something like this. And as you exhale, you can feel your body let go. You can feel your shoulders drop, your jaw soften. And if you do that 3 times right now, you will probably feel a shift in your state.
Yeah.
So just a little, yeah, please go ahead.
And I just think it's so interesting how we can shift our state so easily, right? And everyone who's walking around who feels that they're having a bad day, you just need to do something like this and you can literally change anything. And I know Tony Robbins is big on state change. And
Mhm,
I know being in some of his seminars over the years, and all of a sudden, that's why we get people to get up and move and do different things, right? Because it changes your state and it changes
mhm.
exactly how you feel. But I'm feeling a bit too chilled now.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Yeah, the Tony Robbins, he's really an inspiration. He also has that state story strategy. But
Yeah.
this, what it does is essentially the inhale, it gives you some activation energy of like, hey, I'm doing something differently to my brain. I'm changing my state with intention. So that inhale giving you that activation energy. And then that small inhale at the top, what it's doing is actually opening up the alveoli, which are the sort of air sacs in which the
Mhm.
respiratory exchange happens. So you're opening up your capacity to breathe fully then. And
Yeah.
then the exhale, that's really where I think the magic happens. That's when you're down regulating your state. And so you're just relaxing, coming back into this focused place. And there is a whole art to being relaxed yet alert,
Yeah.
being like safe but focused. And so what we're doing here is we're elevating and coming back down, but in a conscious way. And you look at the heartbeat, it's the same way, right? We go up and
Yeah.
down. So this sort of mimics that heartbeat to really get us into a place where it's like, okay, team, we just got hit with a emergency, but first, let's just all feel okay so that then we can bring our best thinking forward to this problem.
Yeah. And what do most people do when that emergency crisis happens? Everyone just goes into this blind panic, right? And causes complete chaos. Right. And it's so counterintuitive, isn't it? It's that whole slow down to speed up
Mhm.
mentality, which for us is for many humans anyway, is really counterintuitive.
It is a skill. This really is a skill to not just act right off the bat, right from the instinct. Sometimes our situations call for that, but in our modern world, our life is typically not in immediate danger, but our body still feels that. And so it is a whole skill to be able to trust yourself, to be able to trust the environment that, hey, I'm going to get through this. And so one other exercise that I'll share that I really feel is valuable is as you are falling asleep, as you're laying in bed, just putting your hand on your chest and your belly and
Mhm.
feeling like right before you're falling asleep, just feeling yourself breathing into your diaphragm, into the bottom of your belly. And that will actually help you fall asleep faster. It will help you establish this sort of brain diaphragm connection so you can breathe deep throughout the day. So we're changing that pattern, that feedback loop of these shallow breaths to this anxiety state to deeper breaths, more intentional state, more gravitas, if you
Mm.
will. And then finally, we're deepening our breaths. And so we are down regulating our nervous system, which then allows us to fall asleep faster, calm our brain before going to sleep. So that's also just a
Wow.
super simple integrated thing
Yeah.
that you can do that it doesn't really take anything extra. You're just putting your hands on your belly in the couple moments before you fall asleep. And that's what is really powerful about breathing. We're not adding something to your to-do list. We're not
Mm.
adding more
Yeah.
things for you to do. We're changing something that you're already doing that's going to improve everything that you do while breathing, which
Mm.
is most of what you're doing.
Yeah. And so I'm curious, thank you for sharing that. Do you have any examples of clients you've worked with where they've managed to master this breath work and have seen either more revenue, better results within their business? Perhaps you could just talk to a couple of examples like that.
Yes, yes, of course. I have been working with my breath and breath work for 7 years, and I still don't think I've mastered it. It just keeps on going deeper. The breath just keeps giving. But yes, I've been working with one of my clients where when we started working about a year and a half ago, he was under 10K MRR. And so his main goal was to get more profit. And so now, a year and a half later, he actually 10x'd his revenue, 10
Wow.
times in a year and a half. And granted, he did work very hard and he did do all these
Oh.
things. And so it does have this business success, but really what stands out to me is that it's not a single factor. It's not a single business strategy that got him there. He moved into a new home. He re-entered the dating scene. He started doing things that he loved, like playing rugby. And
Mm.
so really is this holistic approach of we're
Mhm.
raising the baseline, we're raising the breath. And so then you just have more energy in your life, and so then naturally, you're able to show up more fully for your business, with your team,
Wow.
for your client, just because you feel better, because you
Mm.
don't have so much weight. You're not exhausted all of the time. And it's this one fundamental switch that is perhaps the most crucial element of life. You have Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yep.
That doesn't even show up, but it's underneath sleep and food and
Yeah, yeah.
nutrition. If you don't have the breath, then
Yep.
yeah, you don't have consciousness essentially. So yes, we increased his revenue by 10 times, plus also had all of these other aspects of his life. That's not an isolated case. Also with Alec, we hit record months. I think everyone who I've worked with actually who has a business has hit a record month while we're working together
Wow.
because you know what you need to do. All of us as leaders, we know what we need to do. Usually we're looking for permission. We're looking for that energy that we need to get over the hump. And so
Mhm.
by having this sort of pattern interrupt and breathing and feeling good about what you're doing, then you free up that energy to go for it, to trust in yourself, to take that leap of faith. And more often than not, it works out so much better than you could have imagined.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah. So, everyone listening, we need to focus on our breathing as a fundamental pillar, really, of improving performance within our teams, within our business, and importantly, within ourselves, right? Because as you say, when you as a business leader show up in a better state, everyone around you is in a better state, but then you have more confidence, you've got more certainty. And like you say, you show up with a different gravitas. In the gentleman you just shared, he will have probably gone on a date and he's showing up differently because he feels different about himself. And that it's so important. And it's like, and I go back to that point of from the beginning, so liberating that something so simple we've got such control over in an environment sometimes where we feel we've got no control over loads of elements in the global world, so much in our own personal world that we've got control over that we can really make a big difference with. So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, that's such a key point. There's so much vying for your attention, right?
mm,
Instead of this top-down model where you look out to the world for the answers, and there's from these million answers, you try to pick one that works for you. I like the bottom-up approach where you connect with you first, and then you put your grounded antenna out into the world and connect them with the ideas that truly already work. So you don't need to do so much filtering, and so that you can really rely on yourself. And I'll just share one more practical tip
please.
here. So basics of breathing properly is breathing in through your nose. Your nose is designed for breathing. It filters the air, it heats it up, it moistens it. So breathing in through your nose, and then breathing with your diaphragm. So breathing down into the bottom of your belly, making full use of your lungs. Now, throughout the day, as a baseline, they actually, like ancient wisdom practices and modern science have shown that there's a perfect breath, which is a great breath to come back to. So this is called the synchronicity breath or coherence breathing,
Okay.
where you're breathing in through your nose from your diaphragm, breathing in for a rate of 5.5 seconds and breathing out for 5.5 seconds. Just in a continuous fashion. You can also think of it as in for 5, out for 6. That works as well. But they've shown that this aligns or brings into coherence your heart, your breath, your brain waves. And so when you are washing the dishes, when you are driving to work, when you are in a
Mhm.
meeting, but you're not speaking, but you're just listening, this is a great breath to come back to of just knowing when I'm breathing like this, I am actually becoming healthier. I'm actually becoming more in alignment. I'm actually being able to focus more when I'm breathing in this sort of way. So that sort of coherence breathing is a great thing to go back to when you're just going about your day and you have a moment of, oh yeah, I should be breathing well. This is what you return to.
And just to clarify, so you're breathing in through your nose, you're breathing out through your mouth or out through your nose?
So either for the in breath, typically you want to breathe in through your nose unless you're specifically doing a certain breath work technique where you
Yep.
need to move a lot of air. So we want to breathe in through our nose. For breathing out, you can breathe out through the mouth or through the nose. Through your mouth, you'll have more air come out. So I really like that for the physiological sigh, just to
Yep.
really let it all go. As a baseline breath, I like to breathe in and out through the nose because then I can actually work with my tongue posture, putting my tongue on the roof of my mouth. You can think of making like an N sound, and then pushing the back of your tongue up. Because you look at your head and we have a 12-pound head here. The tongue is like the support there. And so there's this whole internal posture. The breath keeps on teaching me. It teaches me, oh, how to have proper posture, how to speak in a regulated, confident way from the depth, how
Mhm.
to be present. Really, I think that's been one of the greatest lessons of being present with my partner, being present with the task at hand. So, to answer your question, typically breathing in through
Mhm.
the nose, and then you can breathe out through the mouth or the nose. But I prefer the nose because then I can also work with other things.
Yeah. And I love, as we bring this to a close, about the heart rate variability. I've used some of the heart math, which you can follow these and you can helps you regulate your breathing, and then you can see how your heart goes into coherence. And they've done a lot of these studies as well with people and the horses, and how the horses also help people get into coherence as well. So I just throw
Mhm.
that at the end. Lucas, I know you've got some great resources that you wanted to share with people. So just tell us a little bit about those if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, so I have a free Skool community because we learned our ABCs, our 1, 2, 3s, the date of the Treaty of Versailles, all this facts, right? But no one ever taught me the essential skills of how do I go about life in this body? How do I consciously control my state? So I have a free community on the Skool platform, Skool, where we have community breathwork calls every single week. We learn a little bit more about the theory or philosophy behind breathing. We learn a technique or two, and then we also have a community breathwork session where you're not in this alone. Like the breath that I breathe out, these are the same molecules that Jesus and Buddha and Napoleon and all these figures in history have been breathing, even across time and space. It is what connects us all. It doesn't matter your social economic status, your race, color of your face, we all breathe. And so this is
Yeah.
really a time to learn about the breath and then unite as humanity, something greater than whatever even belief that we hold is just the fundamental nature. So, free Skool community would love to have you there. Otherwise, also offer one-on-one coaching for implementing this. So, to really integrate this into your life, you don't need more information. Most of us need more implementation. So,
Yeah.
I help people to create habits and rhythms in their life where naturally they move to a better state of breathing.
Excellent. Oh, I love that. We'll get the school group details and we'll put those in the show notes so that everyone can get hold of those. So that's amazing. So thank you so much for your time today. It's been so insightful to learn about the importance of breath and how it can just fundamentally change the performance of you and your team and your business. For everyone listening, I'd just like to invite you this week to try and implement some of the breathing techniques that Lucas has shared today. And we'd love to hear what a difference it makes to your week. So until next time, everyone, have an amazing day. Bye bye.